Did you know that toddlers can whine up to 4 times more than older kids? Research shows that whining is the most irritating sound to adults, even more than crying or yelling. But here's the shocking part: whining isn't just a phase. It's something we, as parents, might be making worse without even realizing it. In this video, we'll uncover the surprising mistake that teaches your toddler to keep whining. You'll learn how your reactions might be fueling the fire and what simple changes you can make to stop it. We'll also dive into the psychology behind why toddlers whine, and trust me, it's more strategic than you think. Stick around because by the end, you'll have the tools to turn those endless whines into peaceful communication. Ready to break the whining cycle? Let's get started. Chapter 1. The Whine Trap. Why we fall for it every time it's 7 a.m., and your toddler is already whining for their favorite cereal. Without thinking, you give in, just to get a few minutes of peace. Sound familiar? You're not alone. Research from the American Academy of Pediatrics shows that 80% of parents unknowingly reinforce whining. It's not because we mean to, but because we're in survival mode. The truth is, toddlers are experts at wearing us down. But the mistake here is rewarding the whining. Whining works because, in their world, it gets results. Dr. Harvey Karp, author of The Happiest Toddler on the Block, says, whining is just a more effective form of crying. Your toddler is learning that persistence pays off. The cycle begins when we fall into this trap, giving in, even if it's just to make it stop. So what can you do instead? The key is to stay consistent. Experts suggest using a calm, neutral tone when responding. Instead of caving in, repeat what they want but stand your ground. For example, I hear you want the cereal, but we're having eggs today. Stay firm, and over time, the whining will lose its power. Research shows that children tend to whine less when they know their parents won't budge. Chapter 2. Mixed Signals. How your response fuels the whining fire. Imagine this. Your toddler is whining about their socks being too scratchy. You first say, "It's fine, just wear them." But then, after more whining, you give in and help them change. This flip-flop is what we call sending mixed signals. It confuses your child. In their mind, whining works, sometimes. And that sometimes is enough to keep them trying. A study by developmental psychologist Dr. George Holden found that inconsistent responses actually increase problem behaviors like whining. The more unpredictable your reaction, the more likely your child is to test the limits. So, what's the fix? Consistency is key here. If you decide to ignore the whining, follow through every time. If you decide to address it, stay calm and clear. For example, if you don't want to change the socks, stick with that choice. The more predictable you are, the less reason they have to keep whining, says Dr. Holden. Over time, they learn that whining isn't effective, and that's a huge win. Chapter 3. The Silence Formula. Why ignoring doesn't always work. You've probably heard the advice to just ignore it. While this can work in some cases, it's not always the best strategy. Ignoring works when your child is seeking attention. But what if they're whining because they're hungry or tired? Ignoring won't fix that, it'll just make them more upset. According to the National Institutes of Health, about 40% of the time, whining stems from a real need, not just attention seeking. If your toddler is whining because they're overwhelmed or overstimulated, ignoring it could actually escalate the situation. This is where active listening comes into play. Instead of ignoring, try acknowledging their feelings first. Say something like, "I see you're upset about your toy." This validation helps them feel heard, which can calm the whining. Then, you can guide them to a solution without reinforcing the behavior. For example, let's figure out how to fix your toy. This teaches them to communicate without whining and builds problem-solving skills. If you're into this, subscribe and let's keep moving forward with the video. Chapter 4. Attention Rewards. The hidden currency in toddler whining. Believe it or not, attention is like currency to toddlers. Even when it's negative, like you sighing or raising your voice, it still counts. Think of it like this: to a toddler, attention is attention. A 2014 study published in Developmental Psychology found that kids are more likely to repeat behaviors that get a response, even if that response is negative. So when we react, we're paying them with our attention. Instead of feeding the behavior, the goal is to minimize your response to whining. This doesn't mean ignoring your child. It means giving neutral responses that don't reward the behavior. Dr. Laura Markham, author of Peaceful Parent, Happy Kids, recommends offering positive attention when your child is calm and not whining. Catch them being good, she says. Compliment moments of good communication like, "I love how you asked me nicely." When whining starts, keep your reactions minimal. You can calmly say, "I can't understand you when you whine. Can you try again with your regular voice?" This teaches your child that clear, polite communication is what gets results. By redirecting attention to positive behavior, you shift the focus, and whining gradually fades. Chapter 5. The Power of No, Why Saying It Too Often Backfires. We all know that no is an important word in parenting. But when used too much, it can have unintended side effects. Constantly saying no can make your toddler feel powerless, which often leads to, you guessed it, more whining. Research from the Journal of Child Psychology and Psychiatry shows that children respond better to boundaries when they feel involved in the decision-making process. Instead of leaning on no, try offering choices. For example, instead of saying, "No, you can't have that snack," you could say, "Would you like an apple or a banana instead?" Offering a choice makes them feel like they have some control, which reduces frustration. Dr. Shefali Sabari, in her book The Conscious Parent, says, when a child feels heard and empowered, they are less likely to push back. This approach doesn't mean giving in to everything your toddler wants. It's about framing limits in a way that doesn't trigger defiance. Giving your child small choices within boundaries teaches them how to make decisions while still respecting rules. Chapter 6. Whine-proof parenting, the long-term plan for peaceful communication. The ultimate goal is not just to stop whining for today but to set up your child for long-term success. The key is teaching emotional regulation and communication skills. According to a 2020 report from Harvard's Center on the Developing Child, emotional regulation is one of the most critical skills kids need to develop early. It helps them navigate frustration, disappointment, and other big feelings without relying on whining. Start by modeling the behavior you want to see. Speak calmly when you're frustrated, and use words to express your feelings. Children are natural imitators, and they'll pick up on your example. Another strategy is teaching your child feeling words. When they start to whine, help them label their emotions by saying, "It seems like you're frustrated. Can you tell me why?" This helps them move from whining to explaining. Finally, set clear expectations. Be upfront about when it's appropriate to ask for things and when it's not. For example, you can explain, "When I'm on the phone, you'll need to wait until I'm done to ask for help." Consistency here is key. By creating a structured environment, you help reduce the triggers for whining and promote peaceful communication. If you found this video helpful, subscribe for more great content like this.